Good morning, everyone, and here we have another wonderful blog post from Polygon and their strange ways of telling things about the world. In this case, they have combined a scene from, I guess, the latest episodes of the Game of Thrones series with a HUD or GUI screen from a video game, and now saying that Game of Thrones is a video game now. Now, this is, of course, silly, but I'm sure we're going to read all kinds of fun things from this Peter Allen Clark character about how the story, at least the TV show, is now turning into a video game. Now, that's not, again, it's not unheard of because video games are based off stories or video games have stories in them. So there's story forms in a video game. It's a simulation of a game, it's the enumeration of a game or a story, essentially what an RPG is. And taking place in a medieval fantasy setting, you're going to see a lot of overlap. So there are some things that happened I don't know of because I haven't watched this show in years. I think I stopped around season 4. So I don't know all the details. I don't know all the intricacies, but what he talks about is kind of silly. So let's leave it to Polygon to, I don't know, smash ideas together to not make too much sense of them. Hard to say. So apparently there's misplaced Starbucks cups. I guess that was in the shot. Beloved direwolves. Everyone loves puppies, even big puppies. So who knows? Too many once grounded characters seem to have abilities and opportunities that fail to make sense. The temporal logic, okay, so sense of time, of this series has diminished as the actions inched closer to the season 8 finale. But there might be one way to explain it. Game of Thrones is a video game now. This is just stupid. But let's see what Peter Allen Clark has to say. And of course, this contains spoilers. I don't care. I'm not going to watch any of this. But let's find out. A show that was once praised as behemoth. Really? Game of Thrones was a behemoth of storytelling? Maybe on HBO. I don't know what else they showcase there. I guess Netflix is worth nothing these days. 8 seasons in and being more and more singled out for its flaws, as all stories tend to be, unless you read good novellas or good novellas in series. So this happens especially with translations from book to screenplay to screen. And if you're serializing one of those stories, then of course you're going to get broken down stories that have to be translated for screen. So they lose a lot from the page. That's just how it goes. Nothing new. This is not a surprise to anyone. Everything from the simplicity of battle strategies to framing Sansa's trauma as character growth, okay, have become sticking points for dedicated fans. On Reddit, you'll find little things irking the forum dwellers. Jon Snow screamed down the ice dragon. Was he was he dragonborn or something? What's going on here? Jaime and Brienne survived the Battle of Winterfell despite being constantly overwhelmed by zombies. Yeah, that sounds stupid. Someday Danny knew Cersei had captured Missandei. Wasn't Missandei one of Danny's advisors? How did you just lose an advisor? What was going on there? One of the most mocked aspects of the show is how the characters now seem to be able to zip effortlessly around the world. Okay, that is certainly a problem. Usually in stories that have large scope, like say Lord of the Rings, it's literally a journey from A to B, from the Shire to Mount Doom. So that is why the books are so big. All the adventures that take place between A and B. And that's the point. The point is to get to B. So it's a little more clear in the Lord of the Rings series because the whole point is to eliminate the ring and bring it to Mount Doom. Whereas George R.R., as opposed to J.R.R., is a little bit more up in the air. He doesn't have an ending. He wrote 7 books for 7 kingdoms, and that was it. And he never planned to end the story. And I don't know why. That's the sign of a very bad author when you don't plan out your endings. I shouldn't have to go into a spiel about that. So I don't know what has blocked him from finishing off his series, whatever he's working on nowadays. But it's been over 15 years, I think, at least more, at least that much. So if he's not motivated after having a popular show and all these games and side stories coming from him, he just has to sit there. What the heck will it take for him to be motivated to make another book? And I don't think it's going to happen, but, Maybe on his deathbed, who knows? I don't know what he's up to. He says he's writing, he says he's through the process. It does not take this long to write that kind of book. One of the most mocked aspects of the show is how the characters seem to be able to zip. Yep. Traveling from King's Landing to Winterfell once took multiple episodes. Now it's done in one scene. Again, this is nothing in the world of writing, but not while other scenes are taking place. So you could have a time skip. Time skips are inherently neutral. It's what is the point of a time skip. And if it's just teleportation, or that's what it comes down to, then that's what it is. That's always a bad thing. How can Daenerys travel 2,600 miles in a single episode to save Jon Snow? Maybe she's on a dragon, I don't know. How can Arya travel from Bravos to Riverrun in the span of time it takes to fight the Battle of the Bastards? For some viewers, these inconsistencies shatter the credibility that the show about dragons and cold zombies once had. Yeah, that would do it. So the time it takes to travel, and especially in a medieval setting where the fastest travel you've got are dragons and boats, that's a big problem. So not too sure what that has to do with fast travel in video games, but we'll get there. Season 8 works under a different set of rules than everything before it. To put in one way, the characters have powered up enough to have unlocked new traits and abilities. Okay, so it's like Skyrim. Every character just keeps running. He gets good at the running stat. I don't know. Video game players can probably follow the logic. Sure. Characters gather new weapons. Okay. And powers as they advance through the game, getting them ready for the final boss. The whole Metroidvania genre is based around playing a character who starts as generally weak. Every RPG you start off generally weak. What does that have to do with the Metroidvania genre? Are there levels they can't traverse and they get stuck and they have to go back and find a key or an ability that acts as a key? Give me a break. Come on, Peter. Don't be stupid. Through exploration, side quests, and new tools, the character eventually becomes strong enough to take on the big bad at the end. He just threw this in there. He just threw Metroidvania in there. I don't know, maybe to show off he knows something. Of course, it's a Polygon article I'm not going to link to. This is called good SEO, or when you write a blog, you have links to your own content or your own website. That's what makes this thing rank better in Google and other search engines. So this is such a silly thing to say. The Metroidvania genre. How about every video game where you have to pass an obstacle, so you have to get better at it, or you have to get a key? Come on. Arya Stark is the perfect encapsulation of the video game logic that Game of Thrones now uses. No, she's not. We first met her as a feisty, though relatively powerless character. Her character beats after that. Okay, her character beats after that could only be described as leveling up. Could only be described? How about in every story, you start from a low point and you get to a point where the climax is, so you've achieved internal and external accomplishments. So you've conquered individual faults, and you've conquered public or physical faults, like not being strong enough, not being fast enough, not being smart enough. All these things come together in the climax. This is how stories work. This is the fact that the writer thinks this is the only way it could work, or can only be called leveling up, is just. I mean, he's trying to combine his knowledge of storytelling with video games, with TV shows. It makes no sense. These are story forms. They are in everything. Whether we're talking about an RPG character in a game, a side story in another story, or a short story, or any kind of fantasy story, anywhere. Just, you need these elements. When Jon Snow gives Arya her beloved needle sword in season 1, he might as well say, "It's dangerous to go alone. Take this." Okay. Little Zelda reference there. Sure. After that, she has the lessons with Sirio. Level up. And I love his grammar here. He has an exclamation and then another punctuate. It's just like, dude, do you even English? Like, what are you doing? Like, look at that. Exclamation, close bracket, period. It's like, whoa. Do you have an editor? Apparently not. She meets Jig and Hagar and receives an iron coin. I don't know how getting an iron coin levels her up. Does he understand the concept of keys, which are physical objects, not character faults or failings that they have to then adapt to? So she takes the coin to go to Bravos. She goes to Bravos and is accepted into the House of Black and White. Again, not a level up. What is this guy talking about? She loses her vision, and we don't know how, apparently. Regains it and uses that skill to kill the waif. Level up. I don't know if she dies in the books. I don't think so. That could be called a level up because she beat a mid-boss or mini-boss, I guess. Returns to Westeros, a killing machine, and Bran presents her with the Valerian steel dagger. Ugh. Level up. It's not a level up. Getting equipment or buying equipment is not a level up. Does this guy even play video games? Does he know what he's talking about? I think he just watched the show. And he works for Polygon. I think that's it. Finally, before the Battle of Winterfell, Gendry gives Arya her dragonglass blade staff. Oh. So she got Valerian steel and an obsidian blade staff. Interesting. Okay. That would make killing whites easier. With all these abilities and weaponry, Arya has basically completed her skill tree. Oh, give me a frickin' break. This is, oh my God. I guess you could tell who he's writing this for, but you got to be really silly to even take this seriously. No wonder that she is able to fast travel through the castle, even though none of this has anything to do with fast traveling aside from getting onto a boat to go to Bravos. But he didn't even mention that. She says she goes to Bravos. It's across the ocean, across the sea. To get to the Night King and slide that dagger, she's able to fast travel through the castle. Okay, there's no such thing as fast traveling through a level. You fast travel through a map. Like, I've never seen a fast travel inside a building. I thought, again, I don't know the series, and I've just heard random people talk about things, so I don't know what the last few episodes are all about. But apparently she teleports. Now, if this guy knew anything about RPGs or tactical RPGs or medieval stories, there's a lot of games where the roguish character, the thief style character, has the ability to go into stealth, which means they're undetectable. And that literally means on the video game screen you can't visually see the character aside from an outline or a faded image or whatever. So he doesn't even have the gameplay mechanic understood or explained. Fast traveling to get to the Night King and slide that dagger in between his frozen ribs. Achievement unlocked. This is pathetic. I think this guy is just using buzzwords, but for video games. I've never seen buzzwords for video games. And trying to mash three ideas: video games, storytelling, and TV shows, or streaming shows, whatever you would call HBO show these days. Many fans were dismayed that Arya was able to plot her way through Winterfell. Okay, now he's using a literary term that means nothing in this context. I don't know what he's talking about. Did she plot her way through Winterfell Castle? Was she having multiple motivations? Did she have multiple end points, like plot points or plot goals? Did she have a series of stories from room to room? Siddle, is that a word? Siddle past. Walk in a furtive, unobtrusive, or timid manner, especially sideways or obliquely. Okay, someone knows their English or their thesaurus. Past all the White Walkers and leap into the air to attack the Night King. How did she get there without dying or being stopped? Is that even possible? Well, again, if you were an RPG guy, she was stealth. She was going through stealth mode. She was a rogue. If you look at it through the lens of a video game, and Reddit link says, spoilers how transportation in GoT actually works. The lapses in logic, and we're talking about temporal logic, I assume, start looking like rewards for playing this long. I'm trying to remember Skyrim. Can you gain going stealth by traveling? I don't think so. I think that's an actual stealth skill. You have to be walking very slowly in stealth to be able to get better at stealth. I think that's how it works. And there she is in the Night King, I guess. The characters have collected Valerian steel and discovered dragon glass, or I think it's obsidian in the books. Armies have been amassed, and plenty of points have been put into intelligence. Apparently not, because I've seen a few links on YouTube that say how dumb the tactical and strategic battles have been. So I think he's just being poetic here. And that calls into question he didn't actually watch the show. Or maybe he's a moron himself and he can't understand the show. That's also a possibility. John leveled up to fly a dragon. Did the level up have a perk? Or did he open up a new skill tree to have, like, riding dragon level 1? So why would fast travel be that hard of a concept to grasp? Probably because you're not explaining it very well there, Mr. Peter. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. You're getting all your RPG and allegories off. They're wrong. The video game logic in Game of Thrones has been growing more and more apparent as the show speeds towards its finale. No, it hasn't. Every decision, every kill, and every death, not to mention every miraculous, heavily damaged survival, are no longer to develop characters. They are now about riding the story's momentum to the final few confrontations. Well, that's a bit of a huge general statement. Every decision, every kill, and every death, and every survival, or heavily damaged one. When you get near the end game, or you get near the end part of a story, there's no longer a need to develop characters. So that's fine. They're just challenges to overcome that either have a parallel to the character having already achieved a harder challenge to overcome, so it's no longer seen as a problem, or just wrapping up loose ends. So this is just a big pile of crap. This entire sentence makes no sense. In the same way, even the most carefully crafted, emotionally introspective video. In the same way, even the most carefully crafted, emotionally introspective video game narratives. What? This guy understanding. In the same way, even the most carefully crafted, emotionally introspective video game narratives eventually. This is not. There's no noun here, buddy. Or he's using a plural. Emotionally introspective video game narrative eventually bend their. This, I can't even read this. Video game narratives eventually bend the will of the plot. Bravo, Polygon editor. Where the hell were you? I'm not going to blame the writer because everyone makes grammar errors, but I'm going to blame the editor because they didn't catch that or they didn't even read the bloody thing. After you learn. Oh, I think this is the paragraph where he just goes off the rails and starts rambling. After you learn all about your crewmates in Mass Effect. Of course, he brought up Mass Effect for some random reason. Totally different genre. Like, you still have to take on the Reapers. Is he talking about Mass Effect 2? Because in Mass Effect 2, you don't take on the Reapers, you take on the Collectors. Not once do you fight a Reaper in Mass Effect 2. So not only is he just going for the popular names, he's like, oh, Mass Effect, Skyrim. Of course, he didn't mention Skyrim. He's just using his paltry understanding or knowledge of video games and movies and books or stories and just slamming it on the screen. And very poorly, I might add. He already has 2 broken sentences here of grammar. After Joel and Ellie bond on their trip across the country in The Last of Us, it still ends in a final confrontation with the Fireflies. Maybe it does. Again, I haven't played that game, so maybe. But this paragraph is just gorgeous. By the time a final battle comes around in a video game, there's not much room for more character development. I wouldn't equate character development and video games. I wouldn't, because the focus of the video game is the gameplay. Character development is that rare thing in a story where the internal problems or flaws of a character are made manifest forcing the character to grow and change, or to harden and continue on their way. There are other options, of course, other things they could have done, and outcomes of that climax, but I would never equate this with a video game. And we'd have to go to very specific events or very specific games where the final confrontation with a boss character showcases their character development. It usually doesn't happen in video games. The characters are all solidified. They have the tools necessary to finish the fight, and the focus shifts to wrapping up the story. That's true. And that sentence works both in video games as well as in stories. The characters have gone through the gauntlet of the story. They've gone through the climax, and they've emerged as a new character. This is the hero's journey. This is what stories are. That's good. So this is a very generic statement, and it's true. And they have tools, whether it's skills or psychological realizations, physical things like they've gotten stronger physically. That's true. This is probably the best sentence in the whole story here, or the whole paragraph, or the whole blog. Is that it? Oh my God, there's only one paragraph left. It's been the same thing in these waning seasons of Game of Thrones. All the characters have explored the world, completed multiple side quests, and gathered all the needed equipment. I don't like completed multiple side quests because we're talking about characters in a story that has multiple characters. They have their own storylines. They're not doing side quests. You might argue that's filler material for stuff that isn't in the books because the books ran out and the creators of the show had to add stuff, but that would be considered padding or fluff. So I don't think in a story, unless it's filler, there are side quests. It's just the story of the character or characters. And gathered all the needed equipment. This is in relation to the Night King and fighting the Whites, Dragonglass or Obsidian in the books, and Valyrian Steel. Not sure how that relates to fighting for the Iron Throne. So very, very limited application of that sentence. Credibility and careful consideration for plotting are no longer needed. No, that's the exact opposite. The ending of a story is incredibly important and extremely carefully plotted out if you want a good story. If you want things to make sense. If you want the whole point of why you're reading this book to have value. You don't just throw it together at the last minute. So the analogy between video game and story sort of breaks down here because video games tend to focus on the last boss and the story is always a secondary consideration. And the lack of character development and character flaws and the player character merely being a cipher for the player. That's always a fault in the video game itself. And it's hard to find games like that do everything well together. You know, having an established character that grows and changes and you make a choice and how that affects them personally. Because it's secondary. It's not really the focus of a video game. And that's fine. Unfortunately, this author doesn't seem to think so or doesn't even understand the concept that video games and stories and books are very different. And that's why you have different modes of storytelling and different story forms. So credibility and careful consideration for plotting are no longer needed now that King's Landing is in view. I don't know. Maybe the plot has developed that way where they had to fight the White first, and now that it's gone, or I don't know if it's gone, that now the only other threat is the Iron Throne, or the main focus is the Iron Throne. I thought that would have been reversed, but okay. The only thing that's missing is a chance to hold the controllers ourselves. Yeah, you're an idiot. This is such a stupid... Like this. I shouldn't call him an idiot, but still, this offends me on so many levels. Just how vapid and trite and silly. Obviously, he had to fill a quota by writing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 odd-numbered paragraphs to talk about 3 popular things. It's just silly. But that's Polygon. What are you going to do? Uh, Thanks for guys for listening to me ramble and me rant about Game of Thrones, or at least this blogger's poster Polygon journalist character trying to smash three ideas together and offending me on every level. Have a great day.